Greetings, friends. It's me, Wayman, and I wanted to come on and do a quick video on something I may have put together in my brain. I wanted to give and throw out a hypothesis, and it concerns 1 Samuel 2, 12, the sons of Eli, the scoundrels. And what they're doing here, I think that the biblical writer is getting in an extra dig, an underlying dig, at the sons of Eli by making it appear that possibly they may be performing a ritual or a sacrifice that was not common and not acceptable in Hebrew terms of sacrifice. And this is pretty interesting. I was reading along and I happened to think of this reference when I was reading one of the Greek cultic rituals, which we'll get into. So what I wanted to do first was read this text so it gives us kind of the framework, and then we'll go from there. And hopefully this video will not be long and drawn out and put everybody to sleep. Now Eli's sons were scoundrels, and they paid no heed to the Lord. This is how the priests used to deal with the people. When anyone brought a sacrifice, the priest boy would come along with a three-pronged fork while the meat was boiling, and he would thrust it into the cauldron, or the kettle, or the great pot, or the small cooking pot, and whatever the fork brought up, the priest would take it away on it. This was the practice at Shiloh with all the Israelites who came there. But now, even before the sinew was turned to smoke, the priest boy would come and say to the man who was offering sacrifice, "Hand over some of the meat to roast for the priest, for he won't accept boiled meat from you, only raw." And if the man said to him, "Let him first turn the sinew into smoke, then take as much as you want," he would reply, "No, hand it over at once, or I'll take it by force." So here, a whole bunch of things were being done impiously. The sin of the young men against the Lord was very great, for the men treated the Lord's offerings impiously. So here we have the fork, the cauldron, and the tripods. I don't know if they were tripods, but in Greek form they would be tripods, and I wonder what these pots looked like. Very, very rarely is the boiling mentioned, and this may be the only spot where boiling is mentioned around sacrifice. Everything was burned. So that's what threw up this interesting idea that I had. I think that here the fork is mentioned, and when we get into the Greek cult that we're going to discuss, you'll see that come up. So the people knew the right way. The priests definitely took advantage of not only the people, but also of the deity. And that's one thing you don't want to do, because it will be decided that you should die, both here in Hebrew text and in Greek theology. You should never test the gods and never steal from people or from sacrifice, because you'll pay dearly, as we'll see. But so moving on to the Greek side of things, I've been reading Ancient Greek Cults, a guide by Jenifer Larson, and also a book, Homo, Necans, by Walter Burkert, and Robert Graves also brought it up in his book, Greek Mythologies. So what I'd like to do is read a little bit so we can kind of get what this ritual was and what is up with the tripods and the kettles and the cauldrons, and also the idea of Zeus turning somebody into a wolf or werewolves, and being that sort of thing with vampires and werewolves are all crazy now. It's all over the internet, and a lot of references are made to this ritual now. You know, the whole werewolf thing, you'll see it in the history of werewolves, probably on Wikipedia. But here we're gonna discuss the process and the ritual, and how those ideas came about. What was it? So we'll get into that now. So first of all, a really good description is on page 18 of Ancient Greek Cults, a guide. Walter Burkert in his book, which we'll get to, gets into a little more detail than this does. This is just a generalized view. So here it is on page 18. The most mysterious activity of the cult took place on the summit of the mountain. At the very top, a large mound of ashes and blackened soil contained knives, small tripods, burnt bones, while the sanctuary 20 meters below included two 5th century Doric columns topped by gilded eagles. Here a secret nocturnal sacrifice was held, during which participants ate portions of mystery meat from a tripod kettle reputed to contain not only entrails of animals, but also a piece taken from a human victim. According to Plato in the Republic, he who tastes of the human entrails minced up with those of other victims inevitably becomes a wolf. Tradition said that at least one person at the sacrifice always transformed. If during this time as a wolf he abstained from human flesh, he would become a human again after 10 years, but otherwise he would remain a wolf forever. So, as we'll see in the next text from Walter Burkert, they believe that this was an initiation ceremony for the most part, and that they would eat out of it, and they would end up going away, traveling away, and living as a wolf, and come back to join the community as an adult. By combining, this is from Walter Burkert, Homo Necans, 89, page 89. By combining rumors about the Arcadian sacrifice with local mythology, we've arrived at a description of an entirely real, institutionalized ritual. At its center was the secret sacrificial festival at the ash altar of Zeus in Lycaos. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. We gather from the name that it occurred at night. The entrails of many sacrificial animals were, so they say, sliced in together with those that of a man, so that what each person ate was seemingly a matter of chance. Apparently, everything would be stirred together in a large tripod kettle, and each person had to fish out its portion with the sacred fork. For all must partake of the sacred object. No participant was allowed to decline. The sacrificial meal separated the wolves from the sons of the bear, the Arcadians, just as Lycon had divorced himself from the circle of the gods. So Lycon was a friend of Zeus, and for some reason he sacrificed his son, either to test Zeus, and that's one huge no-no in Greek mythology. You never test the gods. He served his son to the gods, and Hermes and Zeus came, and Zeus knew. And I believe he turned Lycos into a wolf. So it says excavators at Mount Lycaon, however, have discovered no human bones among sacrificial finds. Yet even by daylight, it's hard to distinguish a piece of human heart, liver, or kidney from that of an equally large mammal. Modern surgeons have even pondered the feasibility of transplants. In the flickering flames at night, only the innermost circle of sacrificial servants could know what was really floating in the kettle. The power of suggestion comes from tradition, from social constraints. Human entrails may well have been thought to be present. The proof lay in their effects on the participants. Each time one or more would be struck with wolf's frenzy, whether spontaneously or because they were somehow manipulated. The eaters and the slaughterers were not the same. The wolves disappeared into the dark and had to avoid human settlements for years. By the time the dawning rays of sunlight hit the golden eagles on the top of the columns at the altar, the sacrifice was long over. So, what was interesting is that there's an example of one who became the werewolf. He swam. He had You have to take off your clothes, swim across a lake, live as a wolf for 10 years, come back. He ended up winning the Olympics as a boxer. So here we had reference to the meat hook and the tripods and the boiling. And tripods were prizes also that were donated to temples. They were, I don't know, valued as gifts. And tripods were thrown in to sweeten the deal by Agamemnon, the leader of men, to persuade Achilles to come back and fight the Trojan War. After their fight, there were plenty of tripods found at Delphi and places like that, sacred spots that were donated to the temples. So it's pretty interesting that this biblical text here that we read out of Samuel may, I'm not saying it does, but it may also have an underlying reference to something that was not, definitely not practiced by the Hebrews, simply because the writer may have done this, and people may have known that this was not a correct thing to do, and this was a pagan, possibly a pagan ritual, maybe to boil your sacrifice in a kettle. So I don't know, friends. What do you think? Hopefully you enjoyed that. Be well. Remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking